Welcome to Satsang.
Hello, Vishrant. Can you please talk about why taking offence doesn't work?
So someone does something or says something that you don't like. You consider it a possible insult. The moment you take offence, you hurt yourself. They don't hurt you, you hurt you. They've said what they've said or have done what they've done. That's the world. You're the one that can either hurt you or not hurt you now, because you're the one who's responsible for your reaction. If you take offence, you are hurting you. Now that might be hard to get, but they're just the world. And they're doing what the world does. You're totally 100% responsible for your reaction to anything. And if you take offence, if you really look at it closely, you'll see that you are hurting you. They're not hurting you, you are hurting you. Because somehow you've turned yourself into a victim. You've volunteered to be a victim of them, and you've reacted accordingly. This needs to be seen at a deep level. You create your reaction. You are responsible for it. If you take offence, you hurt you. Nobody hurts you but you. This is, in a lot of ways, a high level of maturity, taking responsibility that you make yourself feel. The world doesn't make you feel. Other people don't make you feel. You make you feel. And this is a high level of maturity. But what's the point in hurting yourself? What do you gain by taking offence? Except suffering for yourself. Are there any questions? Any statements? Any challenges to this teaching today?
The first question, you said in your discourse that this has to be seen at a very deep level. How does this happen?
Well, I was very lucky in that when I was 19, I got a copy of a book called The Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes. And in this book, he outlines how we volunteer to be victims. There's no such things really. It's our reaction to what is that turns us into a victim or not. Bad things can happen and a person can see themselves as a victim of it or not. They can see it, they can go to blame and start becoming a victim and hurting themselves or not. It's a choice. And at that time, at the age of 19, I was quite victim orientated like most other people. People don't like to think they're victim orientated, but if you're blaming the world for how you feel, for how you are, in any way, shape or form, you're definitely victim orientated. If you're taking offence, you're victim orientated. And I could see that I was, and I just chose not to be anymore. I chose not to be a victim of life. I chose not to volunteer to be a victim. And in so doing, decreased by I don't know how much the amount of suffering that has happened to me over this lifetime. Because victims' lives don't work, and they just create suffering with their resistance to what is. And it changes nothing except they suffer. And so I was very fortunate in that I got this book, The Handbook to Higher Consciousness, and studied it back to back over and over again until I got it, and then practiced not being a victim, practiced not blaming other people, the world, for my experience, taking full responsibility that I make myself feel. Nobody can do it to me.
Next, we have a question from Kalimba.
Hi, Kalimba. Can't hear you. Are you talking?
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
Wow. Look, I'm having problems at the moment. I hear what you say, and it makes so much sense. I don't read papers and stuff like that, but a friend of mine gets me to get the paper and I pass it on. And on Friday, I saw the headline that apparently Clive Palmer is intending to sue the Australian government for $38 billion or something like that. And despite the fact that I know, I understand everything you say, I just lost it. I literally had these thoughts of, if I could get a rifle and get near that bugger, I would murder him. Now, how do I practically put into the thing of, it just is, allow it to be? Could you give us any advice on that?
I'm a fatalist. Whatever is, and whatever happens is meant to happen. I don't see mistakes. I don't see errors. I see perfection upon perfection. I see if Clive Palmer does sue West Australia and does win the 38 billion or whatever, and everyone has to pay $12,000 out of their own pocket to cover it. Well, I see that as what's meant to be, rather than wrong. Because I'm seriously not into my own suffering. The moment we see something as wrong or even right, we're in trouble, because that's when our mind starts going off. How do we know in God's big picture for everything that Clive Palmer isn't supposed to sue West Australia and win? How do we know? How do we know it's not the West Australia's karma, the people in West Australia's karma, to have such a big loss?
Yeah. But just to clarify on that one, he lost his battle with West Australia. He's now suing the Australian government.
I know. I'm following it. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean,
But
there's another. Sorry.
But look at it this way, talking about karma, think about the karma of West Australia and the karma of Australia, considering the genocide that white folk inflicted on the Aboriginals here.
Yeah, I can understand that.
You know, there's a lot of negative karma floating around in Australia as a result of the past here.
Right. There's one other issue I'm finding really hard to deal with, and that's the story of the little 4-year-old girl who disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't try not to hear stuff like this, but well, as you can hear, it's like really affecting me. Like, how can that sort of thing be just is?
I don't argue with reality, ever. I just accept reality as it is. It's tragic. You know, we look towards nature, and really the big animals eat the small animals, the old animals, the sick animals. It's what is. There's no such thing as fairness, really. That's some mind-made understanding that doesn't exist in nature. And this poor little girl who's been either abducted or wandered off, it's tragic. But, you know, like this happens around the world all the time. Little girls and little boys get into terrible situations. And because we don't read about them, we don't think about them, but it's happening every day. It's not just this has happened in Australia. I'm sure this has happened around the world, probably by the hour. We live in a tragic world where everything dies. We live in a tragic world where everything gets to cease. And we can accept that or not accept that. If we don't accept it, we've got a serious problem because we're out of touch with reality. This little girl that's been lost, it's absolutely tragic. It's absolutely tragic, but this is the world we live in. And it hasn't just become like this. It's always been like this.
Yeah, totally hear and understand what you say, but can you give me and maybe others some pointers on how to accept it without letting it tear us apart?
Okay, so my process is really simple. I just don't think about things. You see, if you weren't thinking about it, you wouldn't be hurting over it. And your thinking about it isn't changing anything. If your thinking about it changed something, if it somehow helped this little girl, well, that would be worthwhile. But you're dwelling on it and running it over and over in your mind. How does that help anyone, including you?
Yeah, I get that.
So I don't live in my head anyway, but I just don't dwell on the negative. I don't see any advantage in doing that to anyone. People who dwell on the negative create so much suffering for themselves, and then they share it with everybody else. And how does that help anyone? That just brings more darkness on the planet that's already here.
And the irony of it is that I actually hadn't been thinking about it until today's topic started, and then it sort of triggered firstly the Clive Palmer thing, and then when I was talking to you about him, just suddenly out of the blue came this little remembrance. And yeah, as I said, technically I can understand what. Oh God, I haven't turned my phone off. Sorry. Oh dear.
You got to remember that the news is popular because it's negative. People like hearing negative stories, and so they rake up these negative stories to present to us. I mean, it's been going on forever and a day, you know that.
Yeah.
Negative news is popular, positive news not so much. Sensationalism is popular.
Yeah.
And they are definitely sensationalising the Clive Palmer thing and the little girl thing. I mean, we could go to a country like India and find so much poverty and so much suffering if we wanted to get our cameras there, but they're not interested, so they don't go there.
Yeah, well, you and I have both been to India and we've experienced that for ourselves. And as you
Indeed.
say, because it's there every day, 24/7, it's like it doesn't impact on us so much because it's like there's an acceptance of that's how it is. It is.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
and that's the key. In a lot of ways, that is the key to not suffer, is to accept this is how life is, rather than resist it. Because your resistance doesn't change anything. If it did, it would be worthwhile, but it doesn't.
yeah. I mean, there's an old cynical saying: if it's good news, it's not news. And as a result, I actually gave my TV away to the salvos like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But maybe I should just stop looking at the paper when I just carry it from one place to the other, because as I said, it just really touched me so badly. Well, I don't have to tell you that, you can feel that, but I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. So I will do my best to just accept that that's the way it is, and that there is some reason for it happening. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening.
Oh,
So
I don't know if there's any reason. I really don't. We try to justify things, but I don't have a justification for a little girl going missing. I don't have a justification for Clive Palmer. I don't really. I just don't bother dwelling on it because it doesn't change anything.
yeah, that's true. accept our own mental state.
Well, that's right. You can take yourself down the chute with these kind of thoughts, and it doesn't help you. It's like when people turn themselves into take offence. It's like, how does that change anything? You know, I get offended by Clive Palmer, you know, suing Australia or for 30 billion or whatever. How does that change anything? Just hurts you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll take that on board for the rest of the satsang.
Love you, Kalimba.
And you, mate.
The next question is from Susha.
Hello, Susha.
Hi, Vishrant. You said we are responsible for how we feel. Nobody is responsible. And that we can't put it on others. I have a tendency to blame myself. And it's a like being defeat.
But that's victim-orientated thinking too, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can turn yourself into a victim in three ways, really. A victim of someone else, a victim of a situation, or a victim of yourself. But they're all victim orientation, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you. And so sometimes it's like being defeated by my own self. And it's tough.
Yeah, look, the best thing you can do is love yourself. Accept yourself as you are, broken maybe, and love yourself. And then it's easy to love the world and accept the world. While you're in non-acceptance of yourself, it's hard to accept the world and love the world.
Yeah, and then there are situations where people close to me put blame on me, and that's a different situation. And they are being...
That's okay. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? If they want to blame you, let them blame you. It's none of your business. That's their trip. What other people think of you is none of your business. It's their business.
So is that a belief system that no one should blame me, that one needs to undo?
Heck yeah. I get blamed for all sorts of things that I don't get involved in, but such is life. It's how it is. You know, people are crazy.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You just got to love everybody, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You got to love it all. It's best.
Next, we have a question from Marcus.
Hey, Vishrant.
Oh, hello, Marcus.
I wanted to add on a question about Kalimba's situation. I wanted to know, if he doesn't read the paper, knowing what's going on, how is that any different than escaping reality?
Sorry, you'll have to make your question a little bit clearer for me. I'm not sure what you're actually asking. Sorry. Can you try again, Marcus?
Yeah, if Kalimba avoids reading the news and avoids the papers, how is that not escaping the reality?
We could spend all day watching negative news programs if we want. CNN and Foxtel can help you with that, or not. Choosing to not watch the news constantly isn't really escaping reality. It's just not listening to the propaganda that's being put out that's probably negative. I mean, just in our daily lives, if we're present to what we're doing, we're not escaping reality. Just because we don't want to watch negative programs on television doesn't mean we're escaping reality. We're just making a choice that's probably healthy. I mean, you know, the news I was involved in the news. I was involved in publishing. It's all about negativity. It's what people want to hear. If you fill yourself up with that, it's toxic.
Yeah.
Because it's non-stop, you know. It's non-stop negativity.
Right. And I wanted to add on too. I live in a violent neighborhood, so there's also things that go on that's not on the news, that they don't show on the news, and I only hear them from, you know, people in my community. What about that?
Yeah, well, that's how it is. Violence is all around. Depends where you live. But if you're living in a city, there's quite a lot of violence. It's just what is. It's just what is. You either accept it or you don't accept it. If you don't accept it, you suffer incredibly. If you accept it, well, you don't suffer. It really comes down to what do you accept or what don't you accept, because you're creating your reality by your non-acceptance or your acceptance. The world is going to do what the world is going to do. If you're living in a rough neighborhood and there's a lot of violence, that's what is.
Yeah.
You can accept it or not accept it. Your choice, suffer or not suffer.
Right. Also, I don't want to like add on to it, the violence. So I wanted to ask, like, does waking up turn people into pacifists?
You come around someone who's awake and you'll find profound peace.
Yeah.
Because that's the energy field. The Buddha field has profound peace in it. But, you know, people can still be violent. It's human nature in a lot of ways to be violent. When we look at our primal animal level of human existence, it's quite ferocious. I mean, we're at the top of the food chain. People go out and kill animals to live.
Yeah.
It's we live with violence. You know, I go shopping with I go shopping to the supermarket and I pass the butchers. It's for me, because I'm a vegetarian, it's like walking past a morgue. But that's what is. I don't object to it. It's simply what is. This is the world we live in, and I accept that.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm really not into creating suffering for myself. At the moment we don't accept something, the moment we go into resistance, the moment we take offense, we are now hurting us. And for what? For what, Marco? Does it change anything?
Right. One more question.
Yeah.
I wrote, I have a belief that if I don't have any questions, then I failed as a seeker. So my question is, to be a successful seeker, do I need to have questions?
Okay, you're looking at the guy who always had his hand up in the room when he was with his teachers, because I knew that transmission that occurs between someone who's awake and someone who's a seeker is invaluable. And so if I couldn't find a question in my own mind, I'd look around the room at all the other people and the people I knew, and I'd know that some of them had questions that they didn't want to ask because they were embarrassed. I would ask those questions.
That's a good one. Thank you, Vishrant.
Nice to talk to you, Marcus.
Nice to talk to you too.
The next question is as follows. Is it okay to avoid people or situations that are doing things to offend us?
Heck yeah. If someone wants to insult you, you don't have to put up with it. You can walk away. If you can't walk away, you put up with it. There's nothing wrong with moving around. In Buddhism, in teaching, if someone's disrespectful to the teacher or the Dharma, the teaching needs to stop because it's been disrespected. There's nothing wrong with stopping it. There's nothing wrong with walking away. We don't have to put up with things if we don't want to. We can walk away. But can we accept that that's what is? That's the key. Are we okay with it being that way? Even if we walk away, is it okay? Because if it is, we can find peace. If we go to objection, if we go to take offence, well, we are now hurting ourselves. For what? It's like throwing a tantrum and expecting mummy and daddy to come and pick us up. Doesn't work though, particularly as adults. Mummy and daddy won't come and pick us up.
Next, we have a question from Neil.
Hello, Vishrant.
Hi, Neil.
So I've had people in the past who would constantly try to offend me, and I tried my best not to react to it. Even though I was getting offended, I acted as if I'm not and tried to avoid them. But I noticed that every time when I was avoiding it, it escalated, and they were even offending me even more. And finally, I had to say something or do something to stop that from happening. So was there a way in which I could have handled the situation differently? I had to react.
Well, you could have responded instead of reacted. You could have responded by saying something like, that really hurt me when you said that, and see where that goes. You see, but you do it from a place of acceptance. You do it from a place of openness. You don't do it from a place of closure. The whole deal is, in a lot of ways, in higher consciousness, remaining open no matter what is happening. And so someone decides to insult you, there's no need, you can walk away if you like, but you can also continue the dialogue, tell them how it makes you feel, or walk away. The only thing that defeats you is when you take offense, and they didn't defeat you, you defeated yourself.
Right. And sometimes it's difficult to avoid these people. It's like a coworker is always sitting right next to me. So.
Oh, that's how it is. You know, I operate in this world with a way of acceptance, because it's the only way that allows you to remain peaceful. It's the only way also that allows you to serve heart and stay awake. You operate from acceptance. The moment you start operating from resistance, you are taking you to hell.
All right. And I also wanted to know what karma is. Is it something like you do good and good will happen to you? If you do bad, bad will happen to you. Is that what karma is?
Yeah, that's how it works. Whatever you put into life, you get back. This is why Jesus said, do unto others as you've have others do unto you. He was right on board with karma. Right. We get back what we put in.
Mm-hmm. And what if our forefathers did something wrong? Will we get to pay for what our forefathers did?
That's a possibility. That's a possibility. Yep. If you want to gain good karma, become a nice person, become generous, become honest, become loving, become caring, become a lovely person. What a lovely way to live.
Right. That's it. Thank you, Vishrant.
Thank you.
The next question is from Abay.
Hello, Abay.
Hi, Vishrant. My question is something what just now Neil asked. Like, there are people who will not understand until I take offense and shout back at them or yell or do something like that. So in such situations, what can I do?
Can you shout from a place of openness, or do you have to be totally contracted or even partially contracted to do so? See, I'm not advising people or teaching people to be ineffective in the material world. I'm teaching people to be open in the material world. Can you say no from a place of openness? Can you say this is enough from a place of openness? You can if you practice acceptance. You can if you practice openness. So in a lot of ways, in raising our consciousness levels, we're opening more and more and more and becoming more and more vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, in that openness, there's more and more love perceived. But this has to be practiced because it's not natural for us. It's natural for us to close up, particularly if someone's offending or seems to be offending us. For someone to not close, for someone to stay open is actually unnatural. It's something we have to learn, and we learn it through practice. It's the only way. And so someone upsets you, you can say, no, that's enough, but can you do it from openness? Or are you going to contract and get angry and say it from that place and do it from that place, which is also creating suffering in you? You see the difference, Abhay?
Yeah, I am able to understand that. But
And
sometimes, yes, sir.
well, understanding is the beginning. Now you need to practice it, because you're not going to be good at it. Nobody is until you've practiced, and then you get good at it.
Right. Another thing I notice is when I'm open, I am relaxed, and people can see that, and they tend to be more, take more leeway or start giving the same advices, old advices like dye your hair or do this thing, do that thing, which I don't want to do. And I feel like the more I am open and relaxed, people start taking more advantage.
But giving you free advice isn't taking advantage of you, Abhay. It's just giving you free advice. It's a difference between them holding your head over a basin and dyeing your hair. That's different. Them giving you free advice, you can always say, no, I don't want to. And can you say that from a place of openness? Or are you going to close to say it?
Yes.
On the weekend, I was involved in a charity ride called the Pink Ribbon Ride, which was to raise funds and awareness for breast cancer. And we had to wear something pink, and I had a nice pink wind cheater on. But the leader of our group decided that my hair needed to be pink as well. Now, I knew he wanted to do that. He had one of those spray cans, with the pink dye in it. And I kind of stood way back so he couldn't get me. But then when we came to one of the stops, he caught up with me. And he had the can in his hand. And I could either walk away or run away or go, yes. And I just went, yes. And the beauty of yes is it's all over then, except I had pink hair, which I had to wash out later. Acceptance is so cool. Resistance just causes suffering. Practice acceptance. Okay, Abhay?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Vishrant. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from Taranga.
Hey, Taranga.
Hey, Vishrant. Good morning. My question is, so when I get angry or annoyed at somebody, I can kind of just feel the anger like building up inside my body, and I'm aware of it, but I just can't help but to act out on it. How do I get better at just being okay with it being there? Like, it seems very difficult.
Well, you're producing it through blame. You can't keep getting... Anger needs blame to survive. If you haven't got blame involved, you haven't got anger, because it's the fuel that fires anger up. If you have a look at, well, how am I blaming? Because basically to be angry, you have to be a victim of something. You have to be a victim. You have to have turned yourself into a victim.
Yeah.
Blame is how we turn ourselves into victim. If you really examine anger thoroughly without blame, it dies. So stop the blame. Accept that people are doing what they're doing rather than objecting to it in an aggressive way, because anger is aggressive.
Got it.
You know, people are going to do things you don't like until you die. It's just the world we live in. But do we really need to get angry about it? Do we really need to close that much and go into such a defensive mode? When someone does something we don't like, it probably creates a touchiness. It hurts somewhere. And so we react to that hurt by going to blame, which empowers us, because anger is empowering, and it takes us away from the feeling of the touch, but it's a form of violence. You know, when someone's angry with you and expresses it at you, they're injecting you with a toxic energy, because anger is a toxic energy. It hurts, it's violence. And so I was very much like that as a teenager, and I just decided I didn't want to be like that anymore. And so I stopped it. I examined how anger worked. I examined the nuts and bolts of anger, and then found ways to not get involved in supporting it, because I didn't want to be violent with people, and I didn't want to be violent with myself. It's up to you. You're the one creating your reaction. Nobody's doing it to you. You're responsible. What do you think, Taranga?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like
It does,
logically.
doesn't
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But yeah, practicing it is like it's like another ball game. Like
yeah, you're going to fail. Even if you decide to do what I'm saying, you're going to fail a lot of times before you succeed a lot of times. But that's how it works. Whatever we practice, we get good at. If all we do is practice supporting anger, well, that's all we're ever going to be good at.
Yeah.
And really, it's not a good thing to support, because basically it hurts us, and it hurts others if we inflict it on them.
I'll keep practicing then.
Good for you.
Thanks, Vishrant.
Thank you.
Bye.
The next question has been submitted by Nadia. It seems like my mind is working separately from me. Random words and melodies that don't have anything to do with life situations or people I know are constantly in the background, no matter how much I concentrate on doing something or while meditating. It's like the subconscious belief is that if the mind stops working, I will die. So it repeats random words because there's nothing to think about. I don't involve in it because it makes no sense, but it's always there and nothing seems to work with this more than 3 seconds. Could you please give me advice?
Okay. It's difficult because your mind's being activated by a lot of different stimuli. A mind that stays equanimous, a mind that stays silent, is a mind that has learnt to surrender, and that takes a hell of a lot of practice. It doesn't happen by mistake because it's against nature. If you can learn to let go more and more, if you can learn to accept life more and more, if you can learn to absolutely be okay with what is, you'll start finding more peace. Your mind's being activated because it's programmed to object. It's programmed to run story. I mean, when you were born, you didn't run story. You were just blank. But then you learnt all these different ways to live in your head. We went to school to learn to live in our heads. Reclaiming reality from living in our heads takes a fair bit of practice, because it took a fair bit of practice to put us there. Present moment awareness, meditation practice, enables us to Be more present to what is real. But at the same time, we need to learn to let go. We need to learn to be open. We need to learn to practice acceptance so the mind can be at peace with what is. And that's going to be up to you. And I'm never, ever going to tell someone it's easy, because it's not. It's hard. But what else you got to do? What else is worth doing except raising your consciousness levels, which happens as a result of openness, acceptance, surrender. The very things that people don't want to do. People just want to be right. Unfortunately, just wanting to be right keeps you in sufferance and usually changes nothing.
The following question has been written by Brian. Can you find the way of the heart through silence and stillness?
Heck yeah. Openness supports heart. Now, if we're wide open, the mind isn't even moving, because every thought, in a way, is a contraction. The I thought is a contraction. If we're wide open, heart is pretty easy to perceive, because there's nothing in the way anymore, and it's always here. It's not like love is somewhere else. It's always here. In the practice of openness, you start perceiving love for all things, because you can perceive it, because the obstacles have been removed, the barriers, the defense systems. Openness, from my perspective, counts for everything. It is the way of the heart. It is the way towards enlightenment.
The next question has been written by Jeremy. Hi Vish, Jeremy here. I'm interested in knowing more about fear of judgment.
Well, first of all, fear is not real. It's a projection. And everyone's going to judge you anyway. It's just how it is, because we're programmed to judge. All human beings are programmed to judge. It's how we survive. It's how we get by. We judge things and we make decisions based on those judgments. And so, for sure, people are going to judge you. For sure, that's what's going to happen. Now, the only way that I know how to be okay with that is to be okay with that. To be okay with the worst. Let people think what they think. That's their business. What are they going to do to you? Really, what are they going to do? Are their judgments actually going to really hurt you? Or are they just judgments? And so, let them judge. Find a way to be okay with letting them judge. But because if you look at yourself, you judge people. We all judge. Now, how harshly we judge depends on how we're made up inside. But everyone judges to some degree. It's how we navigate the world. Make it okay for people to be judgmental. Make it okay for them to get it right. Make them okay for them to get it wrong. Just make it okay and be free. Because when we don't make something like that okay, we hurt ourselves. And gosh, why would you want to do that? Be in acceptance of people as they are. Be in acceptance of their judgments. Be free.
The next question has been submitted by a viewer. How to overcome the pain of Dad's death?
Why do you want to overcome it? Why can't you just allow it to be there? Why can't you just make it okay that it's painful? Stop avoiding it. Be okay with what's there. It's okay to feel pain. It's okay to feel loss. It's human. It's okay. Make it okay. Instead of resisting it, instead of trying to change it, make it okay. Let it be. Make it part of the tapestry of your life. It's not the totality of your life, it's just a small piece of it. Make it okay. And be free. Or go into resistance to it and hurt yourself. This is your choice. It's just part of the tapestry of your life now, this loss. Such is life.
The next question has been written by Manisha. How do you resolve past life trauma?
Be willing to pay the price. It's very simple. You see, anything that negative happens to me, that's okay. That's just me paying back an old debt. Anything positive happens to me, that's okay. That's just me receiving credit for something I've done. It's all okay. I'm willing to pay my debts. So I don't see things as bad or negative, really. I just see things as they are. And if it happens to be negative, well, that's just me paying back a debt. And I'm willing to pay back my debts. Past life or this life.
The next question has been written by Chris. When you sleep at night, do you dream?
No, I haven't had a dream for 21 years. I go into the darkness, and in the morning I come out of the darkness. Usually about 5 hours of darkness. Fully rested.
The next part of that question, what function does dream play in an unenlightened mind? Does being lucid in a dream help in any way?
My understanding of dreams is quite often they're related to unfinished business that we have during our lives in the daytime. And so we dream at nighttime. But I also think that they're related to how we operate during the daytime. Like if you spend a lot of time dreaming during the daytime, why wouldn't you dream at nighttime? And people think, oh, you have to be asleep to dream. No, all you got to do is be imagining something. That's dreaming. And so a lot of people live in their heads the whole day dreaming their life away, and then they go to sleep at night and continue the dreaming, quite often dealing with undealt with business. Dreaming just stopped after awakening, just stopped. It's quite cool.
The next question has been written by Bhargavi. As you said not to think negative, does positive thinking bring about a good change in the person and situations?
So I don't promote positive thinking because it's just another head trip, it's just another dream, and I'm not into teaching people how to dream. All I say is don't support negativity, because human beings are naturally buoyant. We don't need positivity to be buoyant. We are naturally buoyant. We're born buoyant. What drags us down is negative thinking or negativity. Just don't support negativity. Don't drown yourself. I don't in any way really support people practicing dreaming positivity, because I'm not into dream. I'm into reality, and I love reality.
The following question has been written by Kelly. When meditating, does the length of the breath make a difference?
I think what makes a difference when meditating is the amount of time you practice. more than anything else. And so if you practice meditation long enough, you get to be very, very present. And this is the object in a lot of ways. Meditation, or the practice of meditation, allows us to reclaim reality from the constant dream that we're lost in. And when I talk constant dream, I'm talking the constant thoughts, because with meditation, you're putting awareness on something that is real over and over again until that becomes your habit. And once that becomes your habit, present moment awareness, this is brilliant. But practice is what works, and length of time is what works.
The next question has been written by a viewer. Is it okay to cut off negative people from one's life? When people find out that I'm trying to better myself by being on the path, they expect me to forgive and forget and still engage. But I see it as negativity, and I don't want to deal with it over and over again.
Okay. Look, if you want to raise your consciousness levels, hang out with people who are raising their consciousness levels. It's that simple. You want to, the people or the company that we keep affect us quite strongly. You really want to go to the heights, hang out with people who are going to the heights. It's up to you. The people you hang out with are going to affect you and are going to affect the quality of your life. Choose friends that are going in the same direction. Choose people who are putting truth as an important part of their life. Choose people who are putting heart as an important part of their lives. But that's up to you. Whoever you hang out with is going to affect you, and you are going to affect them. This is how it is.
The next question has been written by Vanita. Hi Vishrant. Prem Utsa. Hi Vishrant. When I don't take offence, I then feel like not responding to someone's negative behaviour. It seems like waste of energy then. How can one remain open and still respond?
There's no need to respond if you don't want to respond. Just remain open. If people want to be negative, let them be negative. If you want to walk away from it, walk away from it. Just remain open. That's the key. Remain open. And how do you do that? Practice acceptance, because acceptance allows us to remain open. Acceptance is so beautiful because it allows us to perceive the heart, love, the most valuable thing here. Matter of fact, probably the only valuable thing here, love. You really want to perceive love, practice acceptance, practice openness. Serve heart, best of all. What a wonderful world this would be if more people were serving heart. And it's up to you. Don't wait for other people to do it. You do it. You serve heart. You open up. This is your journey. Thank you for Satsang. Good to see you brave hearts here today.